What's up guys, it's Manga Time once again. I'm here today to bring you my review of Bleach 659, There Will Be Frost, which is a really awesome chapter title, even if it basically had nothing to do with the chapter whatsoever. Because this chapter went to a place that I don't think any of us saw coming, which is no bad thing, because I was really not feeling an entire chapter of Toshiro versus Gerard. So, yeah, where this chapter went was a big positive for me. Before we begin though guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button to follow the channel. I'd really appreciate the support, and if you gave the video a thumbs up, that'd be great. So moving straight on, I tell you what, the chapter opens in a really weird way, just in terms of the panel layout. It's very rare in Bleach that you get a chapter open with like a tiny panel on the side, and it really threw me off actually. I was like, is this the first page? Because generally in Bleach, they tend to start with big panels. But anyway, it's just Gerard saying, who are you? And it's Ichigo introduces himself for what feels now like the millionth time in this series. Literally every opponent he gets, he's like, I'm captain of the 10th Division, Ichigo Toshiro. Literally, so maybe this is like the 8th time or something stupid. We then get a close-up of Gerard's face, and I just want to reiterate how absolutely creepy his eyes are. Also bear in mind, and this is something I keep forgetting, that Gerard hasn't gone Volsending yet. He's just in the miracle, he's just using the miracle. So this is what his face actually looks like underneath the mask, and that is really weird. His eyes look like they've been stuck on. Really creepy stuff. He then says, I am a Sturmritter of the benevolent Schutzstaffel Gerard Valkyrie, at which point he tries to smash the place up, basically. And we get a bit of this fight, and I still don't think that it's just going to be Hitsugaya, because I just don't see how that's possible. Gerard smashes his arm with his own shield to break himself out of the ice, at which point he then reaches to Hitsugaya and he's like, let's be friends. And I think that's quite funny. I don't really know why he says that, but it's funny. And he smashes through the towers that Hitsugaya was standing on. Hitsugaya somehow basically zips past him, and for some reason Hitsugaya is doing a million times better than everyone else, which I don't quite understand, but he's sort of flying around. Don't know how he flies around before he gets his Bankai. I can understand afterwards. Before is a bit weird. But anyway, he then says, I'm not accepting any new applications at the moment, which is kind of funny. And then he says Bankai. I have to say that the panel where he actually activates his Bankai is pretty cool. It's a really cool angle. He's like flying backwards. I'm surprised he's still got the ice flowers. Well, I think he still had the ice flowers when he fought Mayuri, but it doesn't really matter. But I just kind of thought, you'd think you'd have got rid of those by now, because he's supposed to have been practicing with it, but whatever. And basically, as soon as he activates Bankai, he covers Gerard's entire top half in ice. While Momo looks on with Shinji over her shoulder, which is a cool panel, because again, the perspective is really nice on it. We literally don't get any more of that fight. Gerard's clearly not down. Toshiro's probably not going to beat him on his own. I think we're going to get more Bankai. I still think we're going to get Shinji's Bankai. Like, Shinji is knocked out again, which is an absolute joke. And I just kind of feel like it's... Speaking directly to Kubo now, because you're definitely watching this video. Do something with Shinji. Let him do something. Seriously, this is the second time since the Vandenreich invaded Soul Society, for the second time, that Shinji has been knocked out cold. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, seriously, this guy, he's got a Bankai to show. I still think he's going to show his Bankai in this fight. I don't think he's going to be knocked out, like, for long. The fact that you get this glimpse of Momo looking up at Hitsugaya, I think, if we look at the pattern of the last two fights, the captain does a lot, the captain gets overpowered, the vice captain steps in, and they turn it around. So, the thing with this is, Hitsugaya's here. Presumably when we return to this fight, Matsumoto won't be far behind. So Matsumoto will presumably be Hitsugaya's kind of partner. I mean, I know that Momo and Hitsugaya have this friendship, but her captain is Shinji now. So I can only assume that this panel of Momo is inferring that she will eventually join this battle, hopefully with Shinji by her side. Because if Shinji sits out another fight, this is stupid. He really needs to do something. He has a Bankai to show off, so let him do it. I don't know what Kubo's problem with Shinji is. I mean, we know that Kubo thinks the Vizard's absolutely useless, but Shinji's a special case. He's one of the more main... Well, he was a main character for a little while. But Hitsugaya is basically just kind of flying around the place. I don't quite know what the point in this is, other than massive Hitsugaya fan service. Literally half of this fucking page is Hitsugaya's face. Very well drawn face, but completely unnecessary. So yeah, Hitsugaya, I think we're supposed to be thinking he's getting the upper hand on Gerard here, but he's probably not. Hitsugaya's just so boring. I'm sorry if there's any Hitsugaya fans watching this video, but he's so very boring. But anyway, I'm just hoping, in regards to that fight, that the rest of the captains get back up, they start doing something. We get a bit of a Bankai fest going on, and Shinji actually fights. That'd be cool. Anyway, this chapter suddenly does like a 180, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So we actually get a flashback. And this is funny, because the first thing I saw this flashback was the boy looking through the door. And at first I didn't think it was a boy. At first I thought we were transitioning straight from Momo's thing, and I was like, is that Momo? But I was like, wait a minute, Momo doesn't have glasses on. Then I saw the doctor, and I was like, holy crap, that's Ryuken. I was like, are we getting an Uryu flashback? Because Uryu's actually had quite a few, well, I say quite a few. He had the obligatory one flashback at the start of the series that the rest of Ichigo's friends all had. Did he get more flashbacks than that? Well, I know he had the flashback where he was working with his grandfather with the samurai glove, and then obviously there was a flashback where his dad was like, Quincy's not worth it. So yeah, maybe this is, I don't know, but this is cool though, because basically we see he looks in on his father, because obviously Ryuken's a doctor, so they live in the hospital, and he's like, that's Mum, isn't it? And Ryuken's basically friggin' dissecting Katagiri at this point, which is really dark. Definitely pretty traumatic for Uryu. Ryuken, you have to wonder why he feels it's necessary to perform this autopsy on Katagiri, and I assume it's because he's trying to figure out what happened to her. He's trying to work out, like, what the fuck happened, why did she die, was it something to do with this Haschwalth? Because I imagine he knows what the Haschwalth is. It's also very weird that the only time we've seen Ryuken in this arc is in flashbacks. So I really hope Kubo has something planned for him, rather than just being this driver of history, basically. But yeah, this does look like Ryuken is performing some kind of post-mortem on Katagiri, or some kind of autopsy. Uryu says, why are you still cutting her body? She's been dead for a while now. So if she has been dead for a while, then, the autopsy should have already been and gone. So Ryuken, I think, is clearly doing this on his own terms. I imagine he probably had an official thing go on with the hospital and all that sort of thing, but now he's kind of doing it on his own. And I would imagine that is because he needs to find out what's happened. And then when he looks over at Uryu, when Uryu's like, please stop, I think that's like, I don't want this to happen to you. Anyway, we then cut away from that, and we actually get another Uryu flashback, which is awesome, and this is very cool. Before I even scrolled down, when I read, are you sure it's alright for you to be attending such a normal high school, I thought that was Ryuken talking to him in the future, but it's not. He's actually with Ichigo. And this is really cool. This sort of thing, we've never really had this kind of flashback in Bleach. The flashbacks we tend to get are like the original one with Uryu and Ryuken. They tend to be quite far back, involving relatives or something like that. We rarely get this sort of thing, and this is really nice, because it sets up Ichigo and Uryu's friendship again a little bit more. This is the sort that we've never really seen this. They're sitting together on the roof of the school. The only time I remember them ever doing that was when Uryu joined them for lunch, and it was really awkward because he didn't want to be there. Now, Ichigo's like, you should be at some school for the gifted and talented or something, I figured the son of a doctor would at least want to become a doctor. And then we get this funny moment when Uryu's like, your dad's a doctor as well, isn't he? And Ichigo's like, my dad's special, which is funny. This is also interesting as well. This flashback takes place around the time of the Fullbringer arc, one can assume, because Uryu's got his post-time skip hairstyle. So, I guess Ichigo saying my dad's special is referring to him being a Shinigami, as well as being a bit stupid. So yeah, this is cool. This is an interesting time period for a flashback to take place. But I think it's basically just kind of reinforcing they are actually friends. They don't you know, they don't, because they always have this weird relationship where it's like, do they actually like each other? But they do. And so Uryu's like, I no longer have this desire to become a doctor anymore. And then Ichigo's like, oh, so you used to. And then we get a couple of nice panels, which is just their faces without anyone saying anything. And Kubo's, you know, there's actually some real emotion in this scene, which is really, really well done, I think. And then Ichigo's like, well, you know, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. And Uryu doesn't talk about it, but he remembers Ryuken dissecting his mum, and he's like, that's right, that's the day I decided I would never become a doctor. And he's like, you know, if the job of a doctor requires him to mutilate even the body of his dead wife, that's not something I would ever consider. Now, I imagine this thing about Katagiri is going to come up again at some point. It wouldn't surprise me if Ryuken shows up and he's like, I found a way to counteract Yahava's powers, or something along the lines. And it was thanks to Katagiri or something like that. But anyway, we return actually now to Uryu. I wasn't seeing any of this coming when I read this the first time. I was like, what the fuck? And he has returned from the Zweiter Ass, because if you remember, just before Haschwalth and Basby started fighting, Haschwalth wanted that soldat to keep tabs on Uryu, who had gone out to one of the cities. Uryu has now returned to Varvelt, and Haschwalth is waiting for him on the stairs. And this is just a really, really cool scene. This is really cool because Haschwalth is like walking down the stairs, and we know these two don't like each other. We know that already from the previous time they had a little conversation. I just want to point out as well that we actually see the inside of Varvelt. There's like a nice little. I think it was nice of Yahava to take the time to make little chandeliers when he was transforming the place. But anyway, you know, Haschwalth's like, your face, it looks like you've got a lot on your mind. And Uryu's like, oh, well, Haschwalth, you're the one who looks like he's been racking his brain. And I don't think that's just because of the Almighty. I think that's definitely because, you know, the last time we saw Haschwalth, he basically just murdered Basby. So I think there's going to be something to do with that as well. But anyway, Haschwalth's like, you know, have you forgotten, at night while His Majesty is asleep, his and my power switches places, and now I can see into the future. And the power to be able to do that, you know, reveals nothing but worry. Isn't that right, Uryu Ishida? We see Haschwalth's face for the first time since the Basby fight, and he's got the three eyes. And yeah, he does look pretty creepy. He looks, and I think this is done on purpose, a lot like Hava, I think, in this top page, when he's looking down with the triple eyes and the long hair and everything. But Uryu's like, oh crap, and he's basically like, you know, what are you implying? Perhaps my betrayal. This is a hard to read scene, because we can only assume that Haschwalth has seen something to do with Uryu's betrayal, if Uryu is going to betray anyone. And so, but Uryu is Uryu double bluffing? Is he thinking, if I say you've foreseen my betrayal, it looks less likely that I am going to betray them, because Uryu's bringing it up first? I don't know, it's really hard to say. And then Haschwalth basically replies, why would you say that? I never even implied a single word about what it is that I've seen, you know, so why would you think immediately betrayal? Which then obviously leaves Haschwalth to believe that Uryu's going to betray them. This scene is really, really nicely done. It's really well written, and it really makes you think, what is going through these two guys' minds? They clearly don't trust, and the distrust comes across really well. Uryu is very aware that Haschwalth thinks he's going to betray Varvelt. What we don't know is if Uryu is actually going to do that or not. We do get this scene now, which is a bit suspect, and basically Haschwalth's like, all I found were these little things that you scattered all over Varvelt, and you know, Uryu's like, I'd never seen those before. And Haschwalth's like, is that so? Because I remember these chips used to be used by a certain something. And they were used by the Leiden's Hand, which was taken away by Ishida Soken, used in the disintegration and dispersal of Reishi. So basically, it would appear that Soken stole the material to make a Sanrei glove. Because we know that the Sanrei glove takes in Reishi and then gives it back out again, because that's what Quincy's do. They take it in and then he disperses it in the form of Let Steel. Because if you remember when Uryu used the Samurai Glove against Miuri, the very first thing it did was it destroyed the buildings around them because it was taking in the Reishi. So Ishida Soken stole the Leiden's Hand, made a Sanrei Glove, but kept some of the materials, and now Uryu has them, which is why Uryu's kind of dropped himself in it a bit, because Haschwalth is well aware the only person who had access to these materials is Soken. So, seriously, this is some really mental stuff going on in this chapter. So basically, Haschwalth's like, what is it you've been trying to accomplish by spreading these all over Varvel? I think it's pretty obvious. The Quincy have a big advantage over the Shinigami at the moment in that they don't give off any Reiatsu. The Reishi's so thick in the air that the Shinigami are struggling to locate anyone. So clearly what Uryu's been trying to do by disintegrating and dispersing the Reishi in the air is to make it easier for the Shinigami to contact one another, which sounds to me like he's not a traitor. But Uryu's like, you've got the wrong idea, and Haschwalth's like, wrong idea, and he draws his fucking sword, and I was like, whoa, and he was like, in that case, allow me to confirm my suspicions. And he looks mental, like, seriously. He's like, are you, on whether or not you really are a traitor, and he swings his blade at Uryu. Seriously, this is crazy stuff. Haschwalth happens to seem to have got a personality change since the last time we saw him. He seems to be a bit more, well, I don't want to say, I don't know, he seems a bit more psycho. And Uryu picked up on this personality change the last time they spoke as well, because when Haschwalth, because the last time they spoke was nighttime as well, it was just after Master Masculine died. And, Uryu was like, you seem very different too. And at the time, I was like, it doesn't seem any different at all. I don't know what you're talking about. But it was because he swapped the personality with Yuhava. Something that has literally just come to me, which is why I paused for a second there, is when... Oh no, wait, doesn't matter. The answer has also just come to me. I was going to say, why didn't Haschwalth have the eyes of the Almighty when Master Masculine had died? But it was because Yuhava didn't have them yet. Obviously. Anyway, so Haschwalth smacks Uryu straight out of the wall. Uryu goes flying, and he's like, wait, Haschwalth. And I was like, are they about to fight? And I was like, this is awesome. I don't know why Uryu is like, wait, Haschwalth. I don't know. Is that because, is he bluffing, or is he actually weaker than Haschwalth? So, interesting. However, biggest coincidence of the year, but a welcome one. Uryu's like, oh shit. And right next to him is Ichigo. Ichigo's looking pretty beaten up from his little scuffle with Askin. And he basically stares at Uryu like, oh, what the fuck. And there's a couple of things I want to point out here. Uryu and Haschwalth are clearly deep within Varvel, pretty close to Silburn. Ichigo has gotten very, very far in the last 2 chapters since he was running away from Askin. Where's Chad Norihime? Who knows? Who really cares? But yeah, this is... I imagine they'll show up next week. But yeah, this is a pretty crazy ending. And it basically ends with Ichigo going, Ishida, like he does every time they see each other now. And then Ishida has a very good look on his face, actually. He's like, Kurosaki. And then that's the end of the chapter. Ishida's face is the kind of face that's like, why did you have to show up now? I mean, don't even tell me you're not excited for next week, because next week's going to be crazy. Before I move on to my thoughts for next week, I'm going to drop a 4.5 out of 5 on this week's chapter. The only reason it drops a bit is because the Gerard Toshiro stuff was just typical Toshiro fare. It was boring. Way too many big panels of Hitsugaya. But yeah, the Ichigo, Haschwalth, Uryu stuff, crazy. That's really good. Where do I think it's going to go next week? I think we'll get Haschwalth. Now, it's going to go a couple of ways. Haschwalth is going to be like, prove your loyalty to us by killing Ichigo. Uryu might fight Ichigo. We might finally get the fight between them, but Haschwalth doesn't trust Uryu, and probably never will. So it could just be like Ichigo's like, fuck this, let's go and fight Haschwalth. So the two of them then fight Haschwalth. Or there's some crazy 3-for-all, and they're basically just kind of knocking each other around. I don't know. I really have no idea. Or it's going to be like, Haschwalth's going to be like, show me your loyalty, kill Ichigo. They clash, or Hime and Chad show up, and they're like, Uryu, what are you doing? And then Uryu's just like, fuck it, I've got to do this, or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what Uryu's doing. Because if he has infiltrated the Vandenreich for something as nominal as spreading his little things around the place to try and disperse the Reishi, that seems a bit pointless to me. So clearly he's got some ulterior motive we need to learn more about. Anyway, great chapter, full of flashbacks, which we always love. We've had a lot of flashbacks lately. Which is, unfortunately, not many of them have been about the Quincy, but whatever. But yeah, really great stuff. I really enjoyed this chapter, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this week's chapter. What did you think of the beginning and the middle and the end? What did you think of Hitsugaya and Gerard? What did you think of the Uryu flashbacks? And what did you think of the bombastic ending with Haschwalth, Uryu and Ichigo and everything just going to shit? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And yeah, until next week then, guys. I'll see you later.